would simply have to put in some investment of tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands, not millions, to install the necessary boxes to convert and stream their video into a network environment whereby other partners can then access it and bring it into their native systems. So conceptually, this architecture could work almost anywhere. And it does take an investment of dollars, but it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. It's not a heavy investment. And it doesn't upset the current legacy system that the agency might be using. So we think it's a very scalable approach. It's one that can be easily expanded. It requires an agency to adopt this framework and utilize some of the equipment to do the quote-unquote translating necessary so that it could be served up in a fashion that could be consumed by the other agencies. So, and we're talking about that right now. One of the things we've done in the pilot is we've connected Maryland's fiber network, which is Network Maryland it's called, and we've connected that to NCRNet, which is the National Capital Region fiber network. And by virtue of doing that, you could conceivably have a county in far western Maryland, say Garrett County, through Network Maryland, access the National Capital Region network and pull up cameras from Northern Virginia if they were participating in this pilot. So once you've connected the networks, you have a path. And once you adopt this architecture and the handful of boxes necessary to do the integration layer translating, you could get into this framework relatively easily. But also add, Tom, you didn't ask this, but let me add, this architecture, while we're promoting it as a regional architecture, multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional architecture, can actually help an agency within its own within an agency. When we were talking to some of the larger agencies, it's not at all atypical for them to have multiple cameras of different generations and multiple systems within their agency. And if this architecture was adopted within an agency, it actually helps the agency get a handle on their video assets. Instead of having stovepiped department-specific systems that don't talk to one another and can't be shared all within an agency, using this architecture within an agency can help them actually get their hands around that problem within their agency. And having done this for themselves within their agency, they will have already put in the boxes necessary then to serve up this information to any other regional partners. So while I've been touting this as a regional solution, it actually can help a large agency get their hands around a video problem they may have within their agency as well.
Where do you see the long-term sustainability for something like this?
Well, it depends. The equipment that needs to be sustained is the equipment that's in the integration layer. It's the box that does the conversion to H.264, and it's the streaming boxes that serve up this video networks. Where does this integration hardware and software lie? If it lies at the agency, and in this DOT demonstration, each of the transportation agencies are putting these boxes on their network behind their firewall, then the long-term sustainability in that model is not much, in the sense that the agencies are accepting the equipment into their network and into their architecture. They're going to own it and maintain it over time. However, another approach is to take this integration layer set of boxes, hardware and software, and put it on the network and allow people to publish to those boxes from their agency. And those boxes are a shared resource across the region. Well, in that case, you have to determine how you're going to refresh those boxes and upgrade them over time as standards change. The H.264 is the current standard that everyone seems to be using, and systems are being designed to work with that standard. But, 2-3 years from now, it might be H.269 or whatever the number might be. So you're going to have to refresh this hardware and software over time. if that's a network asset that resides on the network, if that's a shared asset across the region, then you've got to plan for that refresh and in the sustainment plan. But to the extent that that hardware and software is behind an agency's firewall and they agree to maintain it and sustain it, then that becomes a cost to that agency. So there's kind of a couple of variations on the theme here. It's the same architecture. It's just a question of where do you put it on the network and who owns it and where is it housed determines whether there's a cost to participate and what the long-term sustainment costs are.
Two more questions, John. One is, were there any discussions that revolved around integration of camera phones at some point?
Yeah, we have discussed it. We did not pursue that specifically as part of the Phase 1 and Phase 2. We may get into that a little further in Phase 3, but if you think about it, a camera phone is simply another data layer input. So to the extent that that image can then be sent, location, which could be imported into this framework, it's not a terribly hard thing. In fact, while we haven't worked in detail with accepting camera phone images in real time, we have worked on exporting that image to a camera phone in the presentation layer. In other words, allowing from the integration layer over the web to be pushed to someone's cell phone in the as a presentation layer recipient. We have demonstrated that. We have done that. And that's why it's important to convert this VH264 and skinny it down to 200 kilobits so that it could be pushed wirelessly to an endpoint like a video, like a smartphone. If you don't do that, these streams are too bandwidth intensive to allow that in the presentation layer. Part of the box that converts also resizes the video to something that's easily consumable from everything to a smartphone up to a desktop with a fiber network connection.
John, the last question revolves around kind of applications, if you will, once this is up and built and so forth. Can you talk to how this type of thing could impact, say, catastrophic response?
Well, I said, if you remember, that the integration layer needs to answer the 4 questions. And the 4 questions are, where is it, which has ramifications for GIS and GPS? Can we talk about it, which has ramifications for your voice communication systems, which means can my 800 megahertz system talk to your 450 megahertz system? So certainly has voice ramifications. But on the data world, can we talk about it is, can we collaborate on eTeam or WebEOC or one of these other SIMS type software platforms? What do we know about it is the 3rd question. And that means, can we pull down weather information? Can we pull up census information? Can we pull in floodplain information, stream gauge, flood elevation information? And the last thing is, can we see it? And that means, do we have a camera in the area? Can we see the backup? Can we see the overturned tanker truck on the highway? Can we see the water rising in the basin? Video is one of the key components of information you need to have situational awareness that will allow for responders to know what they're getting into. And so I think as you see more and more cameras being built out, I think the demand to share video across agencies is only going to grow. And I think we have to have a framework that is flexible enough to accommodate the different types of systems that are already installed out there. And so we can't adopt a rip and replace kind of mentality on these systems. These systems have, 10, 15, 20-year lives, and you have to develop some sort of approach that doesn't mean you have to replace your entire system. So I think this approach is scalable. It's network friendly. It is relatively inexpensive and could be widely adopted if people would come together and agree that sharing video is an important component of getting eyes on whatever event might be going on. So I think this has real promise, and I'm happy to have had a chance to present it today to the wider audience.